Good evening and welcome to Mindful Live 250. Yup, we're speeding along with these Mindful Live 250 we are on right now. Thank you for being here. I'm your host Nathan Springer. It is the 7th of the 7th in the year of our Lord 2023. Yep, you see, there would be those changes, and it's not just the hair, there's a little more to it, and that's what we're going to be starting off talking about this evening. There have been changes in the rules governing the uniforms in Trinidad and Tobago, governing how the schools run those uniforms, governing how the schools run their hair, their hair styling, grooming requirements. Well, the state has put an input into that, and they have determined how ideally schools should be run on that uniform side. Are we sure that is what we want? Are we sure what we want is for the government to determine the behavioral, the moral, the policy for school institutions in Trinidad and Tobago? Are we sure we want that? What are your thoughts on reparations? I think reparations, if not done within like a maximum 3 decades, if you take more than a generation's time to give reparations, it starts to get complicated. And if you take 200 years to do reparations, I think it starts to get impossible and impractical. And a lot of the arguments that go into that level of long-term reparations could actually extend to a lot of different things. And also, if you are very concerned about repairing what was done to slaves 200 years ago, you should be very concerned about the more slaves that currently exist in the world in present day. I would find it very strange for any group of people right now to be demanding reparations for slavery from hundreds of years ago while not being a current campaigner to stop present day slavery. I start to think like you do not have a problem with slavery, really and truly. You just want more gain for yourself. It's not really an issue with slavery. Students can be future leaders and must be an exemplar, Kathleen Boudou says. Kuvan says, I support nation-to-nation reparations. France is Haiti, Belgium to Congo. I kinda support that. But even that, I think, gets very technical, because nation to nation reparations aren't really nation to nation. It would be nation to nation's leaders. If France sends 20 billion down to Haiti, it's not going to get to the average Haitian. It's going to be one of the corrupt Haitian leaders who regularly take over in coup d'etats, or who are regularly replaced with assassinations and etc. etc. So what would be the point of the reparation in that case? How would it benefit them? If you understand what I'm saying. And it's not like it would have a massive difference in the Democratic Republic of Congo also, you know. There are those difficulties. It's not just that in principle I think that they don't have something to pay back for, but in actual effectuality, what benefit would be gained from it? That's the way I think about that. But good question. Nonetheless, we're starting today talking about hair. Talking about the new hair rules. New ministry. New hair rules in September. Present slavery is a job. Why not teach entrepreneurship in schools? They do teach some entrepreneurship in schools. And when I talk about present day slavery, I'm not talking about the euphemism of present day slavery where, you know, you're a slave to your job, you're a wage. No, I'm not talking about a wage slave or some kind of Marxist reappropriation of the term slave. I'm talking about actual slaves. This isn't some softened term. When I'm saying there are more slaves in present day than there ever were ever in the history of humanity, I'm talking real, like, slaves. It's not some new modern fancy way to soften slave. It's someone who is owned by a next person and is not given a salary and oftentimes treated very badly. Yes, like full on slavery. There are more of those in present day than there ever were at any other point in time in history. So how you're gonna be like, slavery was the biggest stain on humanity's history, and because of that you owe a debt of reparations to the children of the African slaves because of how bad slavery was, and then you do things that endorse slavery currently. Like, I don't know how much I buy that. I don't know. Ministry new hair rules in September. A national school hair code is to come into effect for the new academic term 2023-2024, triggered by the incident at Trinity College in which students wearing afros and keynote hairstyles were not allowed to graduate with their peers. Now, again, that is phrasing and framing the situation incorrectly. It's not that they were not allowed to graduate. They all graduated. They were not allowed to cross the stage at the school's private outside of school function at their church. So they did graduate. First up, Minister of Education Dr. Nyan Gadsby-Dali, who described that situation as unfortunate, has proposed a set of rules that will allow students to wear locks, twists, plaits, afros, and cane rows, but no wigs, dyed or colored hair. I want to know why. Why not wigs? Why stop there? If it's about the freedom of expression, once it's neat, why not wigs? Why not colored hair? Like, what's with this arbitrary line? What's the arbitrary line at hair color? How is hair color outside of the uniform, but hairstyle not? How could you wear We'll go on. Proposals were made on Thursday during a meeting the Ministry of Education held with the Tobago House of Assembly, the National Boards, National Principals Association, NPTA, TT Unified Teachers Association, and other education stakeholders on a draft national hair code. A Ministry of Education statement issued after the meeting said individual schools would be mandated I wonder if the police will ever adopt such a policy where male hairstyle is concerned. Interesting question, Trini Mike. Interesting question. If we train it at the school level, why not allow it at the police level? What's the purpose for refusing it at the police level? What would be the reason? What would be the logical reason that police must keep a low cropped hairstyle, but students must not? What would be that reason? But listen to this word. The topic tonight, Lyndon Mac, is the new hair rules in schools, bro. Listen to this word. Individual schools would be mandated to form a committee to determine their hair school rules, which must align with the national code. And I was looking around on social media and I saw so many people very happy over this. And I found it ironic that many of the same people that were elated over this, the government entering the schools and mandating a change to the school rules that all individual schools must align to. And they were saying this the week after a lot of these very same people were up in arms. The government has no place. Bringing no homo book in my children's school. These are denominational school. The schools have a right to determine what they do. The government can't force that on no school. Well, it seems like this country wants government force on schools. You see, many people seem like they don't understand things work on principle. You don't get to get government power in schools only in the area you want, but then you remove government power otherwise. You either get government power in schools or you don't get government power in schools. If a little kerfuffle on social media could get our Ministry of Education to, on a moment's notice, draft and mandate a policy across all schools like this, what would happen if pressure goes in other directions? Are you sure this is the direction you want it to go in? Because you are in the view that, children should have the freedom to wear their hair how they're supposed to. Okay, that's your view, okay. But should the government enter there and be able to mandate school rules? Would you be happy when the government enters and mandates other rules? I just want to be sure that everyone is okay with that. In the interim, no student should be penalized on the basis of a hairstyle once they are in conformity with the national code, the minister said. All parents and students should be sensitized by the school's administration about the implementation of the school hair rules before they are effected. Gadsby Daly said ministry would continue to collaborate and engage with stakeholders in the education system on updates and upgrades in school operations and policies to improve the effectiveness of the educational sector. The Ministry of Education is cognizant of the fact that educational environment is a dynamic one, which requires from time to time adjustments to policies to keep pace with accepted changes in societal norms, values, and beliefs. You're hearing that? You're hearing that? The ministry is of the belief that adjustments to policies must be made to keep pace with accepted changes in societal norms, values, and beliefs. So when the societal norms, values, and beliefs continue to change, as I can guarantee you they will, understand that we have just celebrated the government implementing at an authoritarian level those changes into schools. Is that the way you want it? Are you sure? Just so your child could have his plait up hairstyle? Is that worth it to you? Is it? That the government now changes and determines the moving school policies dependent on the varying societal norms and values and beliefs. Rooney says societal norms aren't good. Look at the society as is. That's my belief too. My belief is I don't want to be moved depending on societal norms that change at a strange level. I don't want to be that. That's the proverbial frog in the boiling kettle, where I am to sit in the kettle of societal norms, and if it turns to a boiling level, I just stay there and turn my internal temperature up with it and die with it. No. If my internal temperature remains at a nice, cool 36 degrees Celsius, if the external societal temperature starts to rise, I jump out. Have you ever looked how students dress for schools? It is a fashion statement or a learning. I agree. This is a potential floodgate for changes that people will not be so comfortable with eventually. I agree. Same thing Lyndon Mack is saying. There are students that dress to impress and those that come to study. It's always been like that. Yes, it has always been like that. But the difference has been that in schools that want to promote an increased level of discipline, they had the authority to say, okay, those pretty boy students who want to come for looks, you don't do that in our school. That's not what our school is about. You come here like a monk. You shave your head. You wear the same clothing because the only focus is on the book. That's how some schools ran. If you don't like that, you could have gone to the government school and gotten whichever rules you want. Instead, no. What you prefer is to have the government mandate those rules across all schools. I do not want that. Massimo says, I think it's far more sensible to allow for schools to determine these things and remove barriers for school creations generally so that there's more options for parents. I agree. If you want XYZ being taught to your kids, then go to the school. Right, exactly. Exactly. That's my belief. Allow each individual school institution to teach things according to their belief and go with it. Listen, we have religious schools in Trinidad and Tobago. There are schools in Trinidad and Tobago that teach about a man being born of a virgin and then dying and rising again on the third day. That's not exactly straight academic science. And according to some societal norms, values, and beliefs, they have moved away from that. We have some schools that teach about ancient mythology as a current religion. Hinduism is one of the oldest religions that is still around. Are we to say that we are to throw away that ancient mythology because that is not up to date with the current societal norms, values, and beliefs? Is that the direction you want to go? Trini Mike says, I never understood why persons wanted to go to schools that they didn't identify with, fight up to change their rules, and fight up to change their rules. That's the same thing with me, Trini Mike. I find it arrogant. And I was saying this when we spoke about it before. I find it so bold-faced that you want to go to the people's institution because you like the reputation of their institution. The reputation of their institution was gained through the years of these rules. But you want to go there and force them to change their rules. It's like, I take up myself, go to the mountains of Kathmandu and find the ancient monks up there, and I tell them, teach me your wisdom, O great monks. And I go and I tell them, and they tell me, shave my hair, put on the monk outfit, and come to the monastery and take my oath of silence. And I tell them, no, I want to come to the monastery. You must teach me, but I am not shaving my head. I am wearing what I want. And when I reach to the monastery, I will be carrying out MindFULL live from atop the hills. What? That's insane. You can't do that. You can't do that. If that's what I want to do, I need to find an institution that is in line with that. Again, this is the same thing with the lady in the school with the hijab. Yeah, it is. The Ministry of Education, the minister went on, the Ministry of Education is cognizant of the fact that educational right going on and it changes. She said the ministry had taken note of the national discourse surrounding the issue of acceptable hairstyles and has assessed current policy arrangements, as well as recent global and regional responses to calls for reform in this area. Again, listen to what the ministry said they listened to in order to make this change in policy, as well as recent global and regional responses to calls for reform. I'm sorry, I don't care what the global and regional responses to anything are when coming to the education of my child. I don't care. Some of what the global view is on something, I don't agree with. I don't want to go along with it. Wetback says what public finances being accepted by these schools kind of forces them to accept the new rules. Yes, it does, Wetback. That is correct. That's why they cannot change away from it. But in my view, I think these schools should. They should, in my view, the better way to run a lot of these things is privatize most of these schools. And people talk about it won't be affordable for some people. Well, allow a voucher system, because either way the Ministry of Education pays for the schooling of students. So allow a voucher system where you could take the money to educate your child for 7 years of secondary school and carry it to any private school you wish, or carry it to a government-run school. Let's do that and allow those government schools to have flexible rules that change with the varying societal norms, and allow the private schools to keep their private rules. I could tell you I would have predictions about which schools would perform much better. And I could tell you, I assure you, if we do that in Trinidad and Tobago, some of these same people would be lining up outside of these private institutions, lamenting about the privileges. And let us in. It's a privileged institute. Let us in there. But you don't want to follow the rules. Actions, consequences. They want to control which actions your child does to prevent the consequences. And I despise the gaslighting about all of this, Like, this is all about and I was talking about this previously. Like, this is all about, the ancestry and the colonialism, This is the racism from the colonial days that is seeping down into us. No, it's not. Every country on earth, when they talk about discipline, they talk about haircuts. Every country on earth, whether they're white, black, yellow, red, pink, doesn't matter. Discipline and sharp grooming has always gone together. It's not some kind of special hatred against the African hairstyles, The power of the African is in their hair, The power of the African is in their hair. So they want you to cut your hair to take away your I don't buy it. I'm sorry, I don't buy it. Them youth men with the hairstyles, a lot of them, it's not about returning to their African heritage. It's about rebelling. It's about pop hairstyles. These guys, as I said way back then, they are not going and researching Bantu hairstyles from the ancient Bantu kingdom and the ancient Mali kingdom and the ancient Ghanaian kingdom and the Songhai kingdom and finding those hairstyles and reinventing and bringing it. No, they're copying American pop hairstyles and a hip-hop hairstyle, American inner city ghetto hairstyles. Like, let's be real, that's where the fashion statement for a lot of these come from. Don't try and gaslight me to tell me that this is some kind of reconnection to the African heritage. No. Don't gaslight me with that. Do not. And I was saying this on Twitter today, that it seems like melanin and hair is the African dog whistle. Like, anyone says anything about melanin or skin color or hair and hair texture, all of a sudden as an African person or a person of African heritage, you must jump in line and yes, they're right. Like, relax. Think about it for a moment. Think about it. Pause, stop, and actually allow your mind to engage on it. Do not allow people to put you on autoplay mode when they just make they make the whistle. So in Trinidad, let's speak plainly. In Trinidad, when you hear people talk about the we, us, and the cane field, and the Caroni, and the Central, and the you know that they're doing a dog whistle to the East Indian population in Trinidad and Tobago. And the UNC has played on that for years. That's where the UNC's base is strong. But it isn't different for other races. That same melanin and hair dog whistle in the United States, one party basically has 98% of the black vote. Why? Because they do the same thing. They play that, hey, that other side going to oppress you based on your hair color, on your hair and your skin, and now all of your critical thinking skill goes out the window. Yes, sir, whatever else you say, I listen to. No, that's not how it works. Just as in my experiences with the hair situation, it was more of the rules applying to some and not all, and that is a different issue. That's a different issue. If it's obvious that the rule is unevenly applied, that's another issue. You will get me on your side with uneven application of the rules. But that was not. But that does not wait. Is that notification serious? Notification is from a fake account, or the person puts their name as notification. Thank you, thank you, Rooney. Thank you for blocking Mr. Notification. Yeah. An uneven application of the rules is another issue. And you would get me on your side for that. But this issue was not about uneven application of the rules. It was that they did not want the rule. I don't agree with that. And here's the thing. It's not about Rastafarianism. Nearly every school in Trinidad and Tobago already makes carve-outs for Rastas. Rastas have hair from Form 1. The pictures of these boys, some of this hair looks like it grew 2 months ago. Like, do not let people gaslight you. Look at the situation. You have a brain. You went to school. You could remember when most of the boys in your class wanted to grow their hair and plait their hair. Was it that they were trying to reconnect with their African heritage? Or was it at the age when they were trying to be more stylish? When they were trying to do certain things that were more rebellious? They were trying to kick against societal norms? They were trying to figure out a way to stand out from their peers? Like, let's not be gaslit. You were young. You were peers. I grew my hair. I know why. I wasn't trying to reconnect with my African heritage. Let's be real. The new rules recommend that one, students shall maintain neat and clean hair at all times. I want to know, what is someone's definition of neat now? What is the definition of neat? Because a messy bun is a purposeful hairstyle that could look messy, but it's designed that way. And if the rules now are to allow for individual expression from the students, why must the hairstyle be neat? Why? Why? If the rules are about now freedom of expression, if the rules were about freedom of expression, which is ostensibly what we are seeing, because, you know, we're changing according to the societal norms and values and beliefs, and modern society believes that you should not be inhibiting the freedom of expression of these young creative minds. Okay. Why are we limiting it to neat? Why? 2, hair that crosses shoulder length should be tied back at all times for safety reasons. 3, locks, twists, plaits, afros, cornrows shall be allowed for all students in compliance with individual school hair rules. I don't understand that sentence personally. Massimo says it seems to go back to the idea in the book Beauty by the English philosopher Roger Scruton. They despise the ideal because to have a sacred ideal is to constantly judge and remind you of your flaws. Correct. To have an ideal is to have a judge. That is factual, Massimo. Ronnie, I don't understand what that sentence means. You have a list of allowed hairstyles and then say it's in accordance to each individual school rule? How does that work? Is this list allowed, or is it according to the individual school rules? That doesn't make sense to me at all. 4. Female students shall be allowed to wear hair extensions, including weaves and braids, in compliance with individual school hair rules. 1. Why only females? Why only females? What is the basis? What is the basis for it being only females? Braids, yes. Weave, no. Nisi, why? Why? What is the basis? Yes, Rooney, I did. How can something be allowed or rather disallowed but depend on the school rules, Massimo? That seems very confusing to me. They're saying these are exceptions that are allowed, but it's according to the individual school rules. I don't understand how those two go together. That doesn't add up to me at all. But this is what they're saying. I don't understand though why there's a limitation. Why is it that the females could come with weave and braids but not the males? Because according to the changing societal norms, boys been wearing braids. Carter had braids in his hair 10 years ago. Is Minister Nyan Gadsby not up with the times? Is Dr. Gadsby Dolly not up with the times? Over 10 years ago, Carter had braids in his hair. Ronnie, some schools always allowed that, you know. That's the point I was making. Some schools always allowed different hairstyles. There are some schools where you're sure it's a beauty salon in the school. They allow whatever you want to wear. But there are some schools where it's much more strict. Some schools, braids, they may give you problems for. According to the color of your braids, they may give you problems for it. The length of your braids, there are different rules. There are different rules. But I am saying now, if we are moving away from the independent individual school rules, where each school attempted to eke out discipline in whichever way they wanted to with those rules, that was the main purpose of it. To attempt to groom discipline into students, that was the purpose, and to create uniformity. But we're moving away from that because of the changing societal norms. Okay, then why are we retaining those old-time societal norms? Why? And you see, this has always been the problem with it. When you say that the rules must move from where they were, now you have to determine where they should be. And do you have reason enough to determine where they should be? That has always been it with me. You decide to change these rules. Now, where the rules need to go is up to you. Then they need to get rid of uniforms. Exactly, KCRE. That is the direction this heads in. If you're saying that the modern societal norms, values, and beliefs is in the direction of freedom for each individual creative soul to express themselves as they see fit through how they dress and carry their hair, then that removes all uniform in the long run. That is what you're doing. And here's what I'm saying. do that in the government schools and allow those denominational schools to continue along as they're going. And it kind of seems a bit disappointing for me as someone in the teaching fraternity to see that the major issue we make change on in Trinidad and Tobago as pertaining to education is to relax school rules. If you were to look at our entire education system, all of the schools throughout our beautiful Twin Island Republic, would you say that by and large, a problem in our education system is too much discipline? Would you say that? A problem in our school system is that there is too much discipline in our school system, If there's an important thing to work on in our school system is we're too rigid in that kind of disciplinarian way, We're like communist China. We need to relax some of the discipline. Is that really what you think? It's not what I think. It's kind of disappointing that the direction we'd head in is to relax rules. And I saw so many people talking about colonial rules, and we need to get rid of those colonial rules. And I don't know how many people always know what they're talking about when they say some of those things. I'm sorry, but there are some colonial rules that are just sensible too. Because colonists did it doesn't make it automatically an evil thing. The colonists drank water too, it doesn't make it evil. It's like I remember back during the whole BLM craze of 2020 reading quite a bit of black studies, and I'm talking university level papers published on black studies and on Afro studies, etc. And I remember reading a paper where they were talking about white supremacy and symptoms of white supremacy and legacies of white supremacy, and they were talking about scheduling and staying rigid to a clock and to timeliness. That is a symptom of white supremacy and colonial settler supremacy or some kind of nonsense like that. And I'm thinking to myself, these are such kind of regressive, deleterious lessons to be teaching to people. That, okay, the Romans were an imperial power that brutally held much of Europe and Northern Africa and the Levant Middle East area under their control with a brutal hand. Yes, they did. But they also developed currencies and developed ways of governing, and they strengthened republics. So does that mean now that because the Romans had a republic, that when we have a republic as Trinidad and Tobago, we are participating in millennial long heritage of Roman supremacy? Like, what? No. If it's a good governance style, it's a good governance style. The colonists weren't the first people to say, cut your hair. Have you ever seen Chinese schools? Have you ever seen North Korean schools? Like, is there any way on this planet where there's a rigid disciplinarian institute where the products of that institute have the freedom to do with their hair as they please? Is there any institute across this entire globe that is serious about producing a disciplined end product? And the wards can keep their hair in whatever hairstyle they choose. That does not exist. Nowhere. White supremacy, black supremacy, yellow supremacy, nowhere it exists. But that's the battle in Trinidad. The hair. And if you see the think pieces on this, the battles of the hair and the history of oppression, you know, that oppressive history. And people, a lot of millennials disappoint me with this, you know. Millennials seem like a lot of us are desperate to live back in the 60s and feel oppression again. People claiming oppression that, you know, you went to school with this person, you weren't oppressed, you were just bad behaved. Oh, the oppression, and look how they oppress. And this country has been run by black people for 50 years. Most of these denominations are run by black people. The black face of white supremacy, I guess. You know how that goes. Yeah. We watch too much American TV. But how many African countries do they grow out their hair anyway, I'm asking? Very few, because many African countries are Islamic countries. And by and large in Islam, you don't see many long hair people. Many African countries are very religious, very traditional. You know, it's the irony of some of it to me, like Haile Selassie the first, you know, Mr. Rastafari himself, he was not a Rastafari. Bro had a nice, neatly cropped, slightly high top afro. And he was an Ethiopian Orthodox Christian. Like, I'm sorry to be the one to burst that bubble if that was a bubble. But the guy was an Ethiopian Orthodox Christian with a nice, neat hairstyle. That seemed to be cut pretty regular. Yes, it is rank. It is rank. Many of those names are ceremonial names. I once knew all of his names. I'm sure Rasta in here would know all of them. It's a strange thing. We are dying to be America so bad. America is dying to be America. It's nearly like social media. Everyone is attempting to be something that doesn't actually exist. You watch many of the American blacks, and they're lamenting about something that they're not going through either. You're not being oppressed the way you're talking about oppression. It's not happening. True Rastafarians are total vegetarians. You know, Kathleen Boodoo, I don't know how many Rastas are in the chat, and I mean no offense to the Rastas. Rastafarianism picks the hairstyle as a reference to the mane of a lion. You know, the hair, the locks is your mane, like a lion. The lions have a mane. And I think to myself, if I am emulating a lion, you can't tell me eat grass. I'm sorry. Lions eat meat. If I and I are the lion, I and I got to eat meat. That's just when if I try to think it through, if I and I must be a lion, lions, you know, lions don't go grazing. Lions don't climb trees and sit down eating fruits. You know what I mean? No offense meant to the Rastas out there, but That's just always a thought I had. It's just always a thought I had. I tell lions, and I tell lion will die. in reality, if a lion is idle, he will die. That's not the concept. What's not the concept? The ras is not the concept of lions. I beg to differ, sir. I mean, if you want to go back to the Nazarene vows, etc., of Hebrews, that's a link, but that's not the only link. The Rast, if you go research it, like literally go Google books on the history of Rastafarianism, find the top book, read about it. What does the hair of the Rastafarian symbolize by and large? And you will see. Lion is a of course it's a symbol. That's when I say symbolize, that's what I mean. The hair is supposed to symbolize a lion. I mean, obviously, and they from the Maroons, well, some I guess. I don't think it's a straight 1+1 kind of thing from Maroons to Rastas necessarily. A symbol of king. Well, yes, it is a symbol, but that's what I'm seeing. That is what I'm seeing. Symbol. It symbolizes. Symbolize. All right. That's all I have for now, people. Any questions or comments inside of the live? Any questions or comments? Yeah, that's what symbolize means. Symbolize doesn't mean that you are the thing. If I put on a beak to symbolize I am a bird, that doesn't mean I am a bird. It's a symbol. Symbolizing something. That's what I mean. And what I'm saying is, if I symbolize being a lion as being king of the jungle like a lion is, lions eat meat. We had a having mindful get together meet and greet settings. I agree on a wetback. I fully agree, but you know, I just not very good at planning, bro. I'm not very good at planning. I'll have to hand that over to somebody who's better at planning. There were attempts inside of the Discord. There were attempts, but it is yet to happen. Nessie, yes. But once you all tell me where, when, we will meet. We will meet. Just let me know. You know, in all of this, they say eyebrow markings and eyelash extensions are not allowed. I don't understand why the girls can't have some eyelash extensions. What are some books everyone should read, in your opinion? The Bible. This one, I would say. Books everyone should read. I always draw a blank on that question. You know, I always draw a blank. If like I'm in discussion with someone and they're talking about something they're interested in, something might jump to my mind. But just to think in general like that, I don't actually have a list like that. And personally, I think how information is acquired is changing a little. 1984 is True Island Girl. That's a very important one. But how information is gathered is changing a bit. Like in the 90s, 80s, and previously, it was about books. You must get a book. You must get a book. But now, with the internet, a lot of the reading that you do that might be most valuable isn't really a book. You could have a lot of access to much scholarly topics straight from online. So, to be very honest with you, it's been a while since I actually read a book. I read a lot of stuff online. Every day I'm reading, but since I actually stopped and picked up a whole book and read it out, it's been a little while. Diary of Anne Frank Miguel, Street Island Girl sees the world, you're calling some good ones there. Animal Farm, True, Think and Grow Rich. Harry Potter White Leather says. Destruction of Black Civilization, Paul Duncan says. I will say if you're interested in any book on anything Afrocentric, read Thomas Sowell. Read as much Thomas Sowell as you can. The perspectives there could help to orient you much better, because he comes at it from a much more real world evidence based idea, not just emotional in tribe loyalty to my people kind of view. Let's look at evidence and history and see what we could learn about this. So nearly any book from Thomas Sowell I'd recommend. But as I said, to me, a lot, yes, he was shunned by many, by some, but none of his work has ever been refuted. They may shun him, they may call him all manner of names, but they cannot negate the impact and accuracy of his work. So, shun him all you want. Yeah, any further questions inside of the live? Or is that it? Or is that it? Yeah, in some of the books, you know, I think maybe sometimes it's 3 chapters from a book that might be most useful, etc. And you could get some of that online. How we get information is changing. Work tomorrow later, folks. Wetback says, I have work tomorrow too, folks. Listen, we have, yes, KCRE, I am. We have the Java Education Camp starting from next week in Mindful Education. Every week they're going through that Java period. So if you want to bring someone for the first week, for the second week, for the third week, fourth week, etc., you can feel free, whichever one you're interested in. Java Educational Camp being run by Mindful Education. If you are interested in that, let us know and register. Do not worry, it's not just for 1 week. So if you miss the first week, you can catch the second week. Whichever week you're interested in, whichever day, be sure to hit us up. You know, we're talking to some students and about what you're doing there, and some students they want to know, is it schoolwork or are we going to enjoy it? And I think then is a dichotomy in sometimes in Caribbean parenting we have. In a lot of the times we train children like schoolwork and enjoyment are on opposite ends of the spectrum. So if you're going to do something that is schoolwork, you understand this isn't something about enjoyment. If you're going to do something that is fun, you understand this isn't something that is pertaining to schoolwork. But I think they aren't opposite ends of a spectrum. I think children enjoy learning. Learning is fun. It's not just a cliche, it's literally true. Children do enjoy learning. It's just we often separate learning, practical, important facts from general learning and make it seem like learning anything important must be annoying and tedious. A horrible idea, So if you're interested, it all started when we got cut hours for learning times tables. That's why I don't believe in beating children for schoolwork. It just doesn't work, really and truly. Don't beat up the children over schoolwork. Bad idea. Really bad idea. You don't want to reinforce trauma. Kinda hate that word, innit? One of the most overused modern words. But yes, you don't want to reinforce trauma when the children have to do schoolwork. It's a bad idea. Don't beat up the kiddies over schoolwork. All right, people. If there are no further questions or comments inside of the live, I will bid you all a good night. Head over to Mindful Education on Instagram. Be sure to subscribe to us. Tell everyone you know a Java Education Camp is going on. Sign up. Sign up. Be sure to sign up. Make sure your child learns something over the Java holidays. All right, people. Laters. I hope you're educated, informed, or entertained. That's all I have for now. That licks get me far in life, not gonna lie. I'm not saying don't give the children licks, but don't give them licks for schoolwork. Good night, people. It was nice. Peace. Be safe over the weekend. TGIF.